Hello, this is Dr. Pete and wanted to address an issue. I always get issues in the class to discuss about politics, which I think is interesting. I don't know if that means business students and management leadership, they all got it and they get it, or maybe they're just a different type of student. Maybe political science students and government students like that discussion and debate. That might be what it is. But having said all that, there's an issue about it's in the news, and I've had some discussions on Facebooks about the idea of the travel bans, executive orders, and all that. And I like to start off with this concept, okay? When when an elected official takes action, and say you like them, maybe they're of your party, their ideology, or you just personally like them, okay? And they take an action. We'll just say Executive Order 1. That action, if left unchallenged, may be a good one, it may be a bad one, or it may just be neutral, but it may expand the power of the presidency or that elected official. Why this is important is then when you get the next person in power, they have that power. And so you always have to ask about the rules of the game and how we play it and what are the limits to the game and the power, all these things. And that's very, very important because once you allow one person to do something, then the next person can do it. So you can't come back and go, well, we think that every president should be able to do X, but now that your person's in charge, we don't want them to have power to do that. Well, that's what children do, okay? And that's not how the real world works. So what I would suggest here is remember, if the ends justify the means when your person's in power, then that may not justify the ends or the means of the next person, but it does justify them having that power. So if we sit there and say, for example, okay, we don't, someone says, well, what about Trump and executive powers? Well, he has the power under the Constitution to do a lot of things. There's actually specific wording, and I'm not going to look up every part of it, but you can actually look in the Constitution where it specifically talks to the power of the president to control the borders and immigration, things like that. The reason that is because there are times when things may or may not need that support or that direction or focus. That's a fact, okay? So when we go back and sit there and say, well, I don't like what Trump's doing now, or I do like it, the precedent has been set in multiple areas. For example, if we go to as recent as Barack Obama, President Obama, he did it in 2011. I'm not suggesting it's right or wrong. He did it, and that gives more power to Trump. Okay? So very similar actions. Are there differences? Of course there's differences, but they're very similar. One action is taken and it justifies others. Some things were taken under the Patriot Act under Bush. His actions helped to create more of a condition where Obama could take action. So is it Bush's fault? Okay. Then we can go back to Carter. He did this with Iranians. But did he really do it? You see? So then we keep going back and back and back. Where do we go? FDR, Federal Delano Roosevelt, Franklin, and he actually interned Japanese Americans. So that's really out there. I mean, think about today, if President Obama or Trump did that, people would be going crazy. So they think this little ban here, well, let's go back to FDR, okay? And then we could go back to Lincoln suspending the parts of the Constitution, right? Those are pretty extreme things. So my point being is every time someone does something, if left unchecked, the next person basically has permission to do it. And it just keeps growing and growing. That's why government keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the power of the presidency gets more and more. Um, so when we have these discussions in class, a good rule of thumb to check if you're partisan or if you've lost focus or reality is to say, let's take the parties out of it and let's look up the history of this. If I'm a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green, fill in the blank, doesn't matter. Take that out. Is your view consistent? Are you consistently trying to be applying the same beliefs that you have? Or do you find yourself being, well, it was okay here because, and let me explain it. But over here it's not so okay, but let me explain that. But they're very, very similar. They're almost identical. Then you have to start explaining that. Okay? That's when you probably are being partisan. or not doing your research, or at minimum, you're not making an effort to be consistent. So that's where I come from a political science standpoint. I don't care so much what you're saying as long as you're being consistent and as long as you're taking the counterpoints. If you're going to prove something wrong and then you ignore the history of it, then that might not be the best debate, right? So my point being is you can have all the discussions at Hardee's and you go there for breakfast and you just run on and on and on with all the other people there. That's great. That's wonderful. But in class, we do have academic discussions. And I don't mind people having beliefs and ideology and voting and all these great things that make America wonderful. But in class, take that extra step to say, well, yes, well, this is my position and this is the history and this is why I believe this. And you know what? I held this person to the same standards as that person. And I think if you did that, you'd find more people tightening up their discussions, being less political themselves, or you may learn just don't talk to them because you're wasting your time. Okay? So I appreciate that and look forward to any other topics that come up or any other support I can give in the class. Thank you.